When the mystery is this good, I had to watch ahead. Hey! Oh my god! Okay, so hey, it's Romania Black. Yeah, we're on episode 2 of Pluto. We're gonna be a fourth of the way through the series at this point by the time I'm done with this episode, which is I'm so used to Monster by Urasawa that's 74 episodes and we're just like on this magical long journey. And with Pluto, it's like, nah, you're gonna be done before you even know it. And I'm like, yeah, we're gonna be a fourth of the way done. Um, by the end of this episode, which is crazy to me. So, Pluto last episode, I felt like I rushed through the discussion so much because I was just like, I was so on adrenaline when it was over. I was like, because it was just like meeting Gesick, meeting Mont Blanc, the murdered robot, meeting this kid at the end, seeing Northern number 2, who I like developed such a heart for, like all these feelings for Northern number 2, and his relationship that he develops with this curmudgeon-y man who's lost his sense of sight, and then he ends up dying. And so there's this force that we know about that is murdering. There are 6 major robots that are like technological wonders of the world. Mont Blanc was one. Northern number 2 was one. They seem to be weapons used in the war that have now been repurposed. Like Mont Blanc became this like Swiss Alps like peacekeeping robot, and Northern number 2 became this like butler. And so they seem to be like weapons of war that have a consciousness that have been repurposed. And some force, whether it's human, whether it's robot, whether it's a mix of both, we don't know, is seemingly murdering them for some reason. And I could say that, it would make sense that there is a force trying to destroy the other 6, because at this point you have weapons of war that, yeah, they've been repurposed, but they still were used in the destruction and a lot of collateral damage across the world. So it does make sense that there is a force trying to destroy them, regardless of what they're doing now. The question is who, what, why. So Gesicht, our cop, who is actually a very super advanced robot in disguise, has been put on the case to try to figure it out. And at the end of last episode, he came across a boy. He said his name was Adam, and he's going to be enlisting his help of. I feel like Adam is a major player in all of this. Seems legit. We'll see if that pans out. But I couldn't wait. I was like, I need to go ahead and watch this episode, because I felt like last episode, I'm like, if I don't go ahead and watch episode 2, a lot of people are going to try to spoil me. So that's where we're at. So please no spoilers, hints, or clues. My philosophy is I want the show to give me answers. You all don't have to. So we can talk about the episode, but don't offer me spoilers or try to be like, actually, this is what it means. I'm like, I'm going to find out. Let me find out in the show. So, and then if I don't figure it out by the end, then we can talk about it. So we've only got 8 episodes, so it's not like you're going to have to wait long. But I'm super excited. I hope you all are too. I want to give a very quick shout out over to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon, who are supporting me and my Netflix subscription to watch this. So, because I literally only have Netflix for like these series. So I want to give a shout out over to Alex Cornejo, to Anime Annie, to Be Happy, to Dana, to Destiny Marie, to Danger Zone, to Eric, to Kiri, to Lyndon, to Matthew Palfiniere, to Murphew, to Nameless Monster, to Nicholas, to Shimoyama, to Sunspots, to Trails, to Translucent Men, to Murphew, as well as Mateo El Fidel, El Freya, and Boo Boo. Thank you all so much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. So yeah, I sat down. It's a nice evening. We might as well get started with this episode and see where it takes us. So I hope you all enjoy, but we're going to look at Pluto episode 2, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do it to it, Lars. Oh, well, okay. Man, I remember when Monster gave you 74 episodes to digest all of this exposition and get accustomed to these characters and let the plot slowly unfold in a nice like little molasses honey trail. No. Pluto is like, bam, are you ready for the tornado? Okay, it's over. Now what? Oh my God. So there's 7. So there's 7 robots There's 7. 7 deadly sins, 7 robots. That's what we're going to do, right? That's what we got to do in this. So let's talk about the robots. This series was like, here's all this exposition. Last episode 1 was introducing Gesick, which I love Gesick's character. Introducing Gesick, introducing this world of robots and humanity that live side by side, getting you accustomed to it, getting you accustomed to how the robots are. But the second half, I feel like my discussion was so short last week because in relation to the episode, because the second half of the episode was all to develop this bond between this blind composer and Northern Number 2, and to show that the robots are not so dissimilar from humanity. And this episode kind of like really makes things even more vague and gray in that regard, and showing that the robots are capable of compassion and developing relationships. And the gray area, like there's a lot with these robots and humanity that I'm like, it blurs the lines of what is human, what is inanimate, what is non-human, and it makes it hard to kind of say like what is what in this world. And I think that's obviously intentional. But they developed this relationship between Northern Number 2 and the composer, so that now we get into this episode, it's starting to really like challenge that notion of these relationships, because there's a lot of people in this episode that treat the robots very poorly, that are very mean to the robots, that treat them just like, you know, just hunks of junk. And we get talking back about the war, the Central Asian War again, and getting back into this idea of that these robots are possible weapons of mass destruction, but that they want something beyond that. They want to be recognized as a form of consciousness as well, not just as a hunk of metal that happens to be able to talk. So let's do our 7 wonders, right? They are our 7 robots. And I'm thinking it's like, is it tied to the 7 deadly sins? We can talk about that. The first one that came to mind was Hercules. And for me, if I'm doing Hercules, I would probably tie it to wrath. Maybe. We have our 7 deadly sins. We have sloth. We have gluttony, we have lust, we have envy, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 2 more. Who are my other 2 deadly sins? Pride. There's pride. I have to think of the movie 7. If I'm doing this, I have to think of the movie 7 to be like, okay, wrath, sloth, gluttony, lust, envy, pride. What is the 7th one? Oh my God, I have to think of, it shouldn't be that hard, right? Greed. Okay. I tied Hercules to wrath only because he seems to he talks about having a killer instinct, and we might just delete this. We'll delete this for now. We'll talk about Hercules as we go. He's the one that, like, he just views himself as the most inhuman, where he's just like, oh, yes, I'm a robot. I'm not trying to be human. I am a robot, as he says, in a human-like body. So we have Hercules. We have Mont Blanc, which we'll just mix and match these. We have Mont Blanc. We have Northern Number 2. Put Northern. I'll put No 2 on there for him. Northern Number 2. We have Adam, who is the kid, which we're going to talk about this. And then we also have Brando. We have Brando in this. I'm like, and we have Brow. The Brow, and then he has like a number like 1589 or something like that. And then we have the 7 Wonder of the World. I'm like, is Gesick the other wonder? Is it Gesick, or is it a robot we've not met yet? Is Gesick one of the technological wonders, or is it something else we haven't met? I don't know. We're gonna leave this open and maybe put Gesick on here, because he's the detective though. I feel like he's not one of the top 7 wonders, because he's trying to, like, here's the thing, because Gesick, you'd think if he was one of the wonders, he'd be a target. So he'd be more worried about, like, defending himself than warning the other robots. But instead, he's warning the other robots. So I don't think Gesick is one of the 7 wonders. But right now, we still have one missing. Conveniently missing one of the 7 wonders. Imagine that. We also need to put on here the humans that are dead. The humans that are dead and what their tie to all of this is. We need to talk about that. Mont Blanc, as we met him, was this very kind, peace-wanting robot that was used during the war, and he clearly, like the scene with him and Hercules and Brando, shows just how much he's been affected by it and didn't want it to happen again. So I feel like Mont Blanc, I don't know if Mont Blanc would represent sloth, but then you have Northern Number Two, who is also a weapon of mass destruction, that decided to not become one either. So, I don't know if they all add up to be the seven deadly sins. It's just something that, you know, we have seven robots, seven deadly sins. They may not perfectly align with those necessarily, but I think that's really interesting. I feel like with Brando, or is it Hercules is with pride? I feel like Hercules might be with pride because he kind of prides himself as a robot that he doesn't need to be a human. Maybe that's the case. I could see that would be that Hercules is tied with pride because he likes being a robot. With Northern Number Two and Mont Blanc, I want to give one of them sloth, but maybe I would say Northern Number Two gets sloth because he just was a butler. Like he didn't, you know, use himself for anything there. And then with Mont Blanc, I don't know if gluttony is the right word. With Brando, it almost would be like the idea of greed, and not greed in a bad way necessarily, but greed as in he keeps on. I want to put either Brando with gluttony or greed, because Brando, he's not greedy in a negative sense in that he keeps on getting all the money for the prize money. I would tie him to greed because he keeps wanting more kids. He wants more and more children. He wants more time with that. He's greedy because he talks to Gesick about wanting, the longer he's around, the more kids he has, the longer he wants to stay on this earth, the more greedy he is about having more time. That's what he's greedy about. And he keeps saving up all the money to get more kids and have the more resources for them. That's his greed. Hercules is his pride as a robot. Brando is greedy for time. I would say Northern Number Two is a sloth because he doesn't act like the composer tells him to keep going away, and he won't do it, so he stakes around. With Mont Blanc, I don't know if his would be, I don't know if Brow would be gluttony, because Brow is the one that's the most human that kills people, that has killed a human. If they're like gluttonous and that they're just like a glutton for punishment, or if they're gluttonous for wanting to, have more, or maybe they're lustful, maybe they're lusting. I'd have to think about Brow. I'd have to think about Blanc and Adam, because they're the three. Like Brow, we've only seen in one scene. Mont Blanc, we keep seeing stuff going back to him. I'm going to think about that as we go through the episodes. But I pretty much think that Hercules is pride, Brando is greed, and Northern Number Two is sloth. I think those sins line up with those robots very well, but we'll see. So we get this opening scene, right? We get this opening scene with our detectives as they find the body, and there's the case with the horns, interestingly enough. So what do we establish with this guy? What's his story? I think the whole idea of tying the horns in is very interesting. Like, what's the point? And what's the deal? Yeah, there's some scenes with horns in it as well. So I want to see, what did they say this guy was? They talked about who he was. He was who gave the robots equal rights. Okay. So one person that's been killed so far is the person that gave robots equality. And then there's another activist that has fought for robots. Interesting. That's kind of the weird connection right now. The part that is so mysterious is you have whatever this tornado, whatever this force is, it does not seem human. It seems, whether it's robot or not, it seems inhuman. But whatever this force is and the thing behind it, it both, not only does it want these, weapons of mass destruction gone, which if you were a human force, I could see that. If you were trying to keep another war from happening and you didn't want these like literal weapons of mass destruction being used, of course you'd want them destroyed. But then they're not only destroying the robots that could be used by the governments to wage war, they're also killing the people that are giving robots rights. So it seems like it's coming from both fronts, but I'm so curious as to why. Like, why is this happening? Right? Interesting. And they go back through the crime scene where it looks like the house was demolished from the inside. And then the other victim was Bernard Lonke, who was a leading figure in the robot liberation movement. So we have Lonke, who was in the liberation movement. Okay. I am so fascinated by the mystery of this. And this series, it's like, we're going to give you little bits and pieces, but we ain't going to tell you anything more. You're going to have to figure this out. So, okay. Some things that came to light in this episode about Adam and about Gesik's meeting with him. I didn't realize that they were in Japan. That's where Adam is from. Adam is from Japan. So if we're looking at where our robots are from, we don't know where Brow is from, right? We know that Brando is from Istanbul, or that's where they've set up shop. Adam is Japan. Northern number 2 was in Ireland, where they went. Mont Blanc was in Switzerland. And Hercules, we don't know exactly what country Hercules is in. I think they tell us. But yeah. And then Gesik's from Germany, right? So this whole conversation with Adam and Gesik in the restaurant is so intriguing to me, where he's watching the kid and everybody is sitting there like doing things and they're imitating humans and trying to pretend to be humanity, and Adam pretending to be the child. So, okay, hear me out. I felt like Adam was suspicious for a lot of reasons. One, he has the horns, like his hair literally looks like horns. So I was like, well, that seems rather suspicious in his design. Two, it feels like it would be a really cool twist for Urasawa to take what we think is just like this unsuspecting child and then making them be the killer of the robots. Then third, they set up the idea that none of the other robots really like Adam. Like during the war, Hercules and them were kind of like, they scoffed Adam because all Adam did in their eyes was walk around like a walking idol, or walking around like a little like mascot being like, oh, peace, I'm a peace ambassador. And it seemed like the other robots were not on board with Adam and were saying like, you didn't fight in these wars. You were just like a poster boy and you were just like a model. You didn't actually go and fight in these battles. So it seemed like they had something against him from the start. But Gesik is kind and he doesn't, hold that against him, but he also wasn't in the war with them. So there seemed to be that. There seemed to be his design. There seemed to be this idea that Adam knows more than he's letting on. And there's something Adam knows that none of the others do. And so, because he says he saw it and he like witnessed the murders. I'm like, were you actually there during them? The other thing with that was when Gesik's like, here, have my memory chip. I was like, you're just going to hand it over to him? Like, that has all your classified documents and everything. Like, that's like a classic, we just gave the murderer all of the information that they needed to cover up something, and it'll happen right under our noses. And Gesik trusts Adam because he's, one of them. So, I don't know. The beginning of this episode, I was kind of like, is Adam someone we should be suspect? And plus, the only thing I do know is that Adam seems like they're based on Astro Boy, who is like the boy robot. So I'm glad we got confirmation early on that Adam is a robot. But I was like, wouldn't that be something if like the mascot, the Astro Boy from the old Japanese manga, was a villain in this series? But then the tornado shows up without Adam there. So I don't know now. I feel like now all of my theorizing and suspectness is just gone because Adam seems like he's helping them out. So I guess he's not the murderer. But there were just certain things that I was thinking, if you're going to subvert the story, then why not do it this way? But I trust Urasawa. I trust that they know what they're doing. I trust that they have a good story planned, but my whole theory about Adam being a villain is kind of thrown out. Although it is sad that he's questioned by the other robots. So then this was the other thing. Gesik talks about the media raised a fuss over your inclusion where you were deployed with the peacekeeping forces during the Central Asian War. He's like, you were aware of that, right? That they were not happy about your involvement? And he's like, yeah, I was. I went to help defend the peace. But the whole time I was there, they just kept treating me like I was some idol or some celebrity. And I think it doesn't help Adam in his case that he looks like a child. So because he looks like a child, even though he's clearly as old as all these other robots, he's treated like he's less mature. That was something else too I thought would be kind of a subversion of making him the villain, right? He's like, that all you wanted was to keep everyone safe. And then they give the little sundae, and Gesic's like, so we find out that Adam is the smartest of the robots. He has the most advanced AI. Again, if we wanted to subvert things to make him a villain, that would give him all the ammunition he needs. The fact he wasn't at the tornado is like throwing off my theory, and I'm like, ugh. Like, dang it. I do like the idea, though, of Adam, this kind of poster kid, being involved in the case. And Adam talks about how he keeps imitating humanity, and how by imitating humanity, he starts to understand why they feel certain ways about certain things. So that gets thrown in his face later on when the detective, the human detective on the scene is like, oh, why are you acting like you're a human? You're not really a human. And I'm like, he just got done telling Gesick how he's trying to, you know, understand humanity, and that's why he imitates them. And it's like, it was a really good like callback in that moment. It was really good. Well done. And he's like, I held the snail because I felt something. I was trying to understand it. You live up to your reputation. And Adam's like, oh, I have an AI. And then he says, you know, your artificial intelligence is of a caliber and nuance far beyond my own. And then Adam's like, that's why they sold me off. And he's like, what? And he says, my body versus my brain. So he makes this statement. Adam makes this statement. It was his body versus his brain that he was sold off. He was sold off because his artificial intelligence was so good. They thought it was funny, so they sold me to a circus. And then he's like, you were sold. And so then it seems like he started to remember something. So I'm wondering if he says he was sold off to a circus because they thought it was funny that Adam's body doesn't match how smart he is. And then that's when Gesick starts to have like this reaction. So he keeps going back to this. It felt very Twin Peaks. It felt very like just this memory that keeps playing in Gesick's head. And I wonder if part of the memory has been erased intentionally by either Gesick himself or someone else because he can't quite remember it correctly. But he keeps on saying like 500 Zeus a body. So I'm wondering if Gesick is remembering Adam being sold off, or if he's remembering the place Adam was sold to, or the group that bought Adam, and Adam bringing up this memory triggered that in Gesick. There's a part of me that just feels like Adam knows more than he's letting on. He knows more than he's letting on, or there is something maybe manipulating Adam. Like maybe Adam doesn't realize, like maybe it's something, I'm not saying it's like hypnosis because can robots be hypnotized, but it could be something that like triggers Adam. He said his body versus his brain. So could it be that when he was sold off, did a group tamper with Adam and make him like a sleeper cell where he could like go off and do this? But he's with the old man and he doesn't attack Brando. That's what doesn't add up. So I know y'all are thinking, you're like, Romania, you need to drop this theory and let it go. But if I don't tell you what's on my mind, that's where my mind is right now. And I know that we're a fourth of the way through the season. We're going to figure it out. It'll be fine. So I don't know if Gesick is the seventh robot. I don't think he is. We've not met the seventh robot. So I feel like we're going to get to know them maybe in the next episode. And he's like, sure, I can help you crack the case. And then he's like, okay. And that's when he says, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And he's like, we need to look. He's like, something that got overlooked. Something you've overlooked. And that's when he goes to the bathroom and starts crying. Right? Because he goes to the bathroom and starts crying after getting all the data. And it's so interesting to see like Adam sobbing about this. Because he's a robot. He says, oh, Gesick, I saw it. So Adam knows what's up. Something is happening. Either he got the data from Gesick so he could figure out where they are in the investigation and work one step ahead of everybody, or he got the information and realized something and he knows maybe who's behind this, but doesn't want to say anything. But then why go to the other guy? I'm a suspicious woman, but I don't know how this is going to add up, right? I do love Gesick and Adam being like these robots, but they look like this big man and this little kid. And then that's when Adam's like, your wife is really nice. And Gesick's like, oh, I don't know if I like that he knows about his wife. I also thought it was interesting that Gesick and his wife, they haven't adopted a child. They talk about these robot adoption laws, which I'm glad they mentioned that, because I was sitting here when we met Brando's wife, Mine, or Mine, when we met her and then all the kids that looked like they'd all been adopted. At first I was like, okay, this show is really blending the robot versus humanity thing to where there's all this gray area, and we're showing how human the robots can be and how robotic humanity can be and unfeeling and unmoving. And then you show me this guy Brando who has like a human wife, and I'm like, they have these adopted children. So I'm like, is Brando essentially a giant, like, I don't want to say it this way because it's so insensitive to Brando, R.I.P., but it almost makes him feel like, you know, he's kind of like a sex toy, like for her, you know, but he's a robot. He has feelings and everything, but the anatomy of it is what I'm thinking of. And I'm gonna get my mind out of the gutter here real soon. But I'm like, so basically he's like a dildo with a body and a personality and a consciousness. And then, but you know, they obviously can't have kids, so they adopt the kids too. My mind had to go through this thought process through this episode. So I was like, how is this working? But then they said there was the adoption laws, and I'm like, oh, thank God we've got that established. So what's interesting with that is that this brings up like a whole host of interesting things, because now we have Hercules, Brando, and Gesick that are all robots, but they look like humans. Adam as well. Northern number 2 and Mount Blanc seem like they're older models. They don't look human. So, but those all do. And so there's this really cool idea that's actually pretty modern now, of the idea of, could you have a spouse that was a robot, and then if you wanted to adopt children, you could. And there's that. I mean, it's a very tempting idea. The fact that these robots can't kill humans, so I would never have to worry about that. I'd have this robot to be a companion, but they wouldn't have to be intimate because they're robots. I mean, if you're on the asexual spectrum, this seems like a pretty good deal. I mean, like, wait, I get to have a hot blonde robot that just wants to snuggle? What? Sign me up. I'm like, yeah, sure, put me in Pluto's world. You know, except for the endless war. But, you know, it's so fascinating to think about, because it brings up all of these ideas, and we talk about people and relationships and population and all that, and that's getting brought up in this, that there are these humans that have partners that are robots, and they are in relationships and they act like a couple. And then you have like Robbie and his robot wife who looks like Short Circuit, and they look like robots but are a couple. And then you have Brando and his wife, and they have children that were adopted. So it's a big old thing. And it's opening this just idea of family, like the nuclear family is completely disseminated and dismantled in this series, and it's so fascinating to me. But yeah, whenever Gesick's like, oh, we'll meet again, Adam, I'm like, it's like, oh, famous last words, am I right? I like the simulation equipment that they do, and then Adam shows up. Again, I feel like I don't know how to read Urasawa with this, because I feel like Adam knows something. I feel like whatever Adam knows is literally going to be an atom bomb dropped on this series, because he just shows up in the investigation just right there after that. I'm like, something's rotten in the state of Denmark, and I don't know where to put my suspicions. And Adam just seems like, I don't know. I want to believe in Adam. I want to believe that he's helping the investigation and that it's fine. But, you know, at this point, too, the detectives, they kind of chide at him. They're like, oh, well, you can't find things tasty, so why would you sit there and enjoy tea? And I'm like, we just watched a scene where he's enjoying a sundae with Gesick, and that's very capable, which is why it made this scene all the more suspicious, because Adam just got done conversing with Gesick about the concept of imitating humans to understand them. And then Adam is the one that points out, well, this is probably what that character did in the moment. And it's like, how did you know? Funny that you're here to piece this together. It's just, the mystery and intrigue of this series has me by the neck, and I want to know more, right? So then they describe the tornado. And the interesting thing is that Adam has this realization of brow, of the idea of killing. And it just seems to like attach his head. I like that these robots, whenever the robots are having like a flash of memory or something, it like jolts their system and makes them like, you know, kind of short circuit for a second. I really like that. And he thinks back to Brow, the god of death. He had horns like these. And he's like listening to Gesick's memories. Yep, the Roman god of death, Pluto. Yep. So the fact-finding mission is what they talk about. And so he goes to this man. This is where the exposition kind of kicked in. He goes to this man that knew the 2 men that died. Meanwhile, they're having a discussion at this company about making robots for warfare. Again, it seems like the big push in this series is not for humans to fight the wars anymore, but for robots to fight the wars. And they talk with Mont Blanc. He talks in the one scene with Brando about one of the reasons they went to stop the war would be to try to get rights for robots where they wouldn't be used as soldiers anymore. And then he's questioning, like, we came here to fight for robots' rights, but there's just a corpse of robots here. So who are we fighting for? Are we really helping the cause by murdering our own kind and murdering our own kind so that we can liberate our own kind? Like, I like that Mont Blanc calls into question the logic of this, right? He's like, every time. So then, yeah, he sees Adam, and I like that. What is this guy's name? We get his name, but he's one of the doctors there. Yeah, Professor. He's like, Adam, my boy. He's like, can I come in? Yeah, Adam's just making the rounds. I like in the background we have this like cannon and stuff that's on display. So Ochanomizu is the professor. So the professor that knows these guys is Professor, what is his name? Ochanomizu. And he's connected to all of them somehow. I want to see how exactly they're connected here. I like that all these office rooms have like a Gendo Neon Genesis feel to them. So Tazaki was the guy that died. Tazaki was his name. Okay. We're going to have Tazaki. Was with Long K. And they died. Okay. There's a lot of names thrown around. And again, we don't got time in 8 episodes to delve too much into it. The robot laws were his idea. He was a great man. And then Adam's like, well, I like how tiny Adam is. Again, if he's based off Astro Boy, it's really cute to see him like going around. And they all think of him like as a little kid and have to remind themselves that he's actually, you know, a grown robot. Can't say grown human because he's not. He's like, can you tell me when you all first met? And, you know, Adam is very convincing because he looks like a little kid. Like, who wouldn't tell him? And so they talk about this dictator, Darius the 14th, and that they made a treaty to stop manufacturing, you know, robot weapons, and that they all agreed upon it. And then they had this operation called Bora. The Bora fact-finding mission was sent to check for robots in Persia to prove whether or not the Persian dictator had violated the rights. But when they got there, it said there were no robots to be found. But they found like a tomb full of robots. So were those the robots that were being built? What was the deal? They said they found it. Nothing nefarious about that, they said. Meanwhile, we have out in the desert the robot that's Brando. Here's the thing that's so fascinating is the idea that like Hercules and Brando, they use robots to hide in as a shell, but they are robots themselves. That was the part that was so confusing to me at first, because I thought Brando and Hercules were like human, and so they'd aged like the older professor, but no, they're just robots using robots to fight with, which makes sense because you're on a battlefield. But it was completely blowing my mind that these robots were talking with Mount Blanc, and I thought they were human. That's how I was convinced, you know? And then we see him. Poor Mont Blanc. I feel so bad for Mont Blanc because he's just like, they're like, oh, you hanging in there? And he's just clearly devastated by what he's had to do. And I feel like Brando, what's interesting in Brando shows that compassion towards Mont Blanc. And we'll see that compassion kind of develop later on when he becomes a father. But then Hercules is like, well, how many robots did you take out? How many did you kill? You have to know the number. We're robots. We know the numbers. We don't forget. And Mont Blanc doesn't want to say it. And it's like Hercules is very much, you know, triggering and tying into that side of him that is robot and not his, you know, the consciousness that could be viewed as humanity. Or maybe not. Or maybe the killer side of him is human. You know, it's blurring those lines. How many combatants did you destroy? And Mont Blanc said a lot of them. And these three robots here out fighting. It's so crazy. Interesting. So we have here the palace of Darius the 14th is about to fall. And they have like the unit and the recording of the news showing the fall of their tower. And then they're like, Adam, the peace ambassador. Of course, he got the easy job. And then he says, why are we here? That's the big question, right? Who are we supposed to kill in this desert day after day? Who are we supposed to hate? I couldn't tell you. And I like that Brando says hate, huh? And at that point I was like, well, they're human. They know about hate, right? But they're robots. So it's different. I love that they're out here questioning these emotions. It fuels their wars, but I don't even know what it feels like. And that point, I should have realized they were robots then, but I didn't. Yeah. He's like, I don't know what hate, it fuels their wars, but I don't know what it is. Like, they don't understand those emotions. So if we go back to our 7 deadly sins, I feel like maybe Adam, I don't know if Adam is gluttony. I'm going to do like these little dots. Because Adam, I don't know if he's gluttony because he like keeps trying to devour these human emotions. Like with the sundae, he's sitting there eating the sundae, trying to devour and understand humans by eating and interacting. He wants to like almost consume humanity so he can understand it more and fuel like his thoughts and everything about it. So maybe Adam is gluttony. Maybe. So Adam might be gluttony, and Mont Blanc might be, maybe Mont Blanc is envy. I don't know. Mont Blanc is either envy or he's wrath. Here's my thing. Mont Blanc could be wrath because he's, you know, he's furious that he has to kill other robots. I feel like, I don't know. Maybe Mont Blanc is envy because he wants to be, I don't think he's envy. No. I feel like maybe Mont Blanc is wrath, which is kind of like the irony because he ends up being this symbol of peace in the Alps. But he's wrath because he was really pissed off that they were destroying robots and he vowed not to. So maybe that's why he's wrath. And then that would mean brow. I think brow is maybe lust. I think brow is maybe lust because he lusts to feel what humanity does. And that's why Adam says he's most human, because that's the feeling. So then that question is, who is envy? I think envy is this 7th robot, or it's Gesick. Maybe Gesick's envious. I don't know. Or the tornado, whatever is in the tornado, whatever is Pluto is envy. And maybe it's envious of the robots being able to have a life after the war. Maybe the 7th robot didn't have a life after the war, and that's why it's envious of the other robots. Maybe that's why it's like trying to kill the people involved with creating robot laws to give them freedoms, because he's like, well, if I can't be free, then none of you will be free. Maybe there's something to that. Maybe he's trying to get robots to all go into war so that they know how this robot feels. to know how Pluto feels, it's the god of death, so maybe it's envious of the living. We're gonna have to revisit the 7 deadly sins as we go through this, and we see the ones I'm not sure about are Mont Blanc and Brow and the other one. I think the other ones, and Adam, I'm still in the air about. Like Hercules and Brando and number 2 seem like the ones that are obvious, but interesting. So then we cut to in Istanbul. So Hercules and Brando, I like that they both just became fighters. Like they just both became fighters, and that's how they get their money and live their lives. And then, you know, they didn't want to go to the Swiss Alps and become peace robots. I also like that both, at first Brando wears the red polo, like the Tiger Woods style. It felt like Rocky Balboa too. And at the very end, like Hercules wears the red almost in reverence, in remembrance of Brando. Look, Brando had a wife, had kids, had a great life, seemed to have a great relationship. I almost felt like with Hercules, I felt like Hercules had some unrequited like feelings towards Brando as a robot. I was like, Hercules, you need to work through this, dude. I was just getting that because he was so pissed about Brando dying. And I know that you may be thinking, Romania, you're just wanting robot BL. And you're not wrong. So if you were trying to tell me that Brando and if you were just saying that Brando and Hercules were just friends, they were just good friends, fine. I'll accept it. I'll believe you. But there's a little part of me that's like, but what if Hercules wanted more and it was unrequited? I don't know. What can we do? I do love the idea of this little house and how he has all of these kids and all of this like just chaos, and he's with this family. I don't know why Gesick doesn't have children. He brings it up and Gesick's like, I'll have to think about that. So I don't know if maybe his wife doesn't want kids, if she's like, no, or if Gesick doesn't believe that he's worthy of being a father. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. There seemed to almost be like a little underlying reason why Gesick doesn't have a family, but I don't know. It kept making me have like 7 flashbacks, which I won't spoil the movie 7 for you, but I kept thinking about that movie being like, I wonder if it's something like that. But they're robots, so it's hard to gauge that. But anyway, I like that they have like the little tiny things of alcohol. I'm like, they pretend to drink and then they say that they've had too much. So I'm like, is it some kind of like stimulant for robots that they're drinking? Is it like motor oil? Like, what is it exactly that they drink? She pulls it out and says it's like some kind of energy. So interesting. But yeah, Brando talks about having a kid and saving up all the money for him. And it's very clear that Brando and Mont Blanc were like besties. They were like best friendos. They were like super close. Hercules wishes. Hercules wishes he was as close to Brando as Brando was to Mont Blanc, man. So, and you could tell he's frustrated. So I'm not surprised that after Gesick and him have this conversation about Gesick telling him like, hey, this force that came for Northern Number 2 and killed him, that killed Mont Blanc, it's coming for you and it's coming for the others. So I'm just passing the word along. At that point, I feel like Brando was like, well, I'm not going to sit around and wait for him to come to me. And I'm glad that Brando does that because what I was afraid was going to happen was that Brando, we were going to like cut back and Brando was going to be hanging out with the kids and then the tornado would have came through and hurt the kids or the wife. I was afraid his kids or his wife were going to die. And I'm like, oh, but no, Brando's like, I'm not going to let you come to me. I'm going to come to you and meet you on my terms. And what's interesting about that is that with Northern Number 2, the storm is coming towards them. Northern Number 2 leaves to protect the composer, who is human, by fighting the tornado, by fighting Pluto. And Brando saves his wife and children, who are human, by fighting Pluto. And Mont Blanc fights Pluto, saving the people around him from the Swiss Alps, who are human. So there's this really weird thing where every time these robots are fighting Pluto, they're saving humanity. So I'm so fascinated about this. I'm a little bit worried Hercules is next because Hercules is like so, yeah, Hercules is, He seems very impetuous and impulsive, and I feel like he would jump into the fray thinking he's strong enough to handle it, kind of like Brando, because they seem like they're very similar. Now, this whole guy saying 500 Zeus a body, what do you say? Very Twin Peaks, I don't know what to make of it. It's a tampering of a memory, because Gesick can't quite access it the same. So it's something's tampering a memory. Or it's something that has to do with Adam, maybe. I don't know. That part is so mysterious to me. And then he's like, who's lucky? Me. And Gesick's like, that you are, and I appreciate the offer. Gesick, like, has all of these, like, last looks at all these characters where he's like, I'll see you around, kid. I'll see you around, Brando. I'm like, Gesick, damn it. I love Gesick to pieces, but I'm like, dude, you are literally a bad omen. I'm like, oh my God. So then we have Hercules. And again, you talk about the symbolism where you have all the people watching the robot matches are human, and they're the ones being like, rip his arms off, do all this, take him to the chair, kill him. Like, they're all humans being so vicious in this moment and bloodlust, with bloodlust in their heart, that it's like who's the monster here, the human or the robot? But yeah, I like that Hercules almost looked like he'd gotten a little bit older, but he's this robot. I like it. Urasawa, you know what? Urasawa, you want to keep drawing these buff-ass men? I ain't gonna stop you. I love that Urasawa, there's all these buff-ass robot men, and I'm like, yes. And it feels like traditional Urasawa fashion that we have to have a child involved in the series. Like Adam, I know Adam's not technically a child, but they look like a kid, so they automatically get like sympathy points, but I don't trust him entirely. Adam's keeping something under wraps. I don't know what, but something. I liked that the statue of Hercules as well is like pointing out to sea. And that sea is exactly where Brando ends up dying. This conversation, though, where he meets up with Hercules, Gesick does, and they talk about why humans build monuments. All I could think about during that entire discussion was of the series Frieren, Beyond Journey's End. All I will say without spoiling that series is that there is a concept in one of the episodes that talks about developing statues because humans forget. And it's a way to remember. And I was like, oh, nice. So I loved that conversation. That was great. But then, of course, they talk about Mont Blanc, and Brando's like, I'm going to go. Like, they talk about going to the zoo, and he ditches them so that he can go for the interview, which is really him stealing his robot and going to find the tornado, to find Pluto. I like the artwork. Like, this art style in this episode, the line work is a little more defined and like thicker, but it works really good. So kudos, show. I thought the animation was really good, and it got kind of trippy. Like, I feel like there needs to be a seizure warning throughout this, because when they start to get their memories all connected, when their memories start to all connect together and it gets all green and trippy, yeah, at that point I was like, there probably needs to be a seizure warning in this episode. So in any case, we go back to Adam and the one professor, and they're driving through town, through the city, and what do they say here? They're sitting there talking about it, and Adam says, do you think all the murders are being carried out by a human? Or do you think it's a robot? Or could it be two of them in cahoots together? It very well could be a robot and humans working together. The only precedent of a robot killing a human is the case of Brow, and that was years ago. And that's when they bring up that there was no tampering with his AI. His AI is perfect. He just developed this killing intent. It's very creepy, and Adam's kind of like, well, what do we do about this? And that's when they lean up, and that's when they start to get the message from Brando. This whole thing with like Brando talking to them like he's gonna fight him while all this is going on, and there's this this tornado feels like Twin Peaks: The Return. I was like, what is happening? It's creepy, right? This creepy tornado fighting him. And we get like a little image of it. I want to get to it. But yeah, they all start tapping into the same line, a signal from Istanbul. So the robots are connected, Gesick included. So is Gesick one of the seven? Possibly. Or are they just connected because they've shared these memories, and they are connecting because they're they've, shared their contacts. Oh, it's creepy. But yeah, he's like, what is going on, Gesick? And he's like, it's communication from Brando. Like, Brando's trying to, maybe since Brando's made contact with all them, he's trying to connect to them. And he's able to. But yeah, there's this big vortex. He's like, we have to keep the channel open. I really want the manga so I can see this in the manga. And he's like, what is he trying to do? And he's trying to fight Pluto, right? To get revenge for Mont Blanc. And I like that they go to find him. It's like this car chase. These two Jetson cars are driving down the road, which Adam and the one professor, they don't really have anywhere to go. But Mont Blanc, or Gesick and Hercules are trying to catch up to him. But yeah. Oh, it's so creepy. And they're like, what did they say? You saw that, right? You could see inside the tornado. Okay, yeah. Yes. So there's something there. Oh, that's creepy. What the fudge is that? That is creepy as hell. No. What the fudge? What? What? So Pluto. What is this Five Nights at Freddy's bullshit? What is this? What is this? Nope. I don't like this at all. Don't like it. Don't like it. Nope. This is creepy. And I like that it just sort of just spirals them. But they got to see what was in it. Both Adam and... Okay. Yeah, what the fudge is that? It's like smiling. It looks like there's the remnants of... There's the horns. You can see the Pluto horns. What the fudge is it? Oh, that's so creepy. We don't get to see it all, but... Damn it! What is it? No! Okay. So yeah. So we got a glimpse of Pluto. But we don't know anything about Pluto. Damn it. So we don't know what the deal is. What is the deal with this robot? What is the deal with Pluto? Are they one of the seven wonders? What is the deal? Dang it! And then, yeah, poor Brando. He ends up dying. And all they can see at the end are visions of his wife and kids. And that's it. It's just like images of them as they fade away. And the salad. Yep, he's like, I can't control it. Yep, and then that's it. Oh, I hate it. I hate that they literally have to listen to this robot die over the course of this radio. It was terrifying. And so then they bring it back. Like the very end, this crackling at the end. And it's just this crack through time and space. Ugh. Now, the creepy part about it is there's this crack in the system that they think is caused by Pluto. And Adam describes it as a Shinigami, as death incarnate. Adam does have the highest artificial intelligence capacity. So I will give him that that's likely a reason why he kind of takes the lead in some of these scenes. But, oh, I'm so curious now. I want to know more about Pluto. I want to know more about this robot. Urasawa. Urasawa has the ability to take something so simple, like the little crack in the screen or something like that, and make it the creepiest thing in the world. Like, it just gnaws at you in the creepiest of ways. Mm-hmm. So then, I like we have this one reporter. He's like, well, I'm back on the scene. There's not really a lot happening, Tom. And the one guy, meanwhile, is trying to get Hercules to worry about his fight rather than keep pouring his money into the search rescue for Brando. And Hercules is like, Brando was my soulmate. Shut up. I also love, like, the Gaston look that Hercules dons, where he has the black tight pants and the boots and the red shirt like Brando. Paying homage. I am not saying no to any of these things. But yeah, damn it. And then that's when they find the remnants of Brando. He gets on his super Segway, which is so bitchin'. And then he finds the arms that are shaped like a horn and part of the memory chip. So yeah, the Pluto's still alive somewhere. Brando did not kill him. We've got a memory chip as long as Hercules doesn't destroy it. But yeah, I felt like we got so much information in this episode, But yet at the same time, there's so much mystery that we still don't know. And I'm like, show. What are we doing? I'm just like, come on now. Yeah. Yep. I'm so fascinated, y'all. I can't wait to see what we get in the next set of episodes. And I hope you all are excited as well. So I can't wait, but it's going to be driving me nuts. I have to be gone now for a week, for a literal week for a trip. I'm recording this ahead before I go on my trip, so it'll be ready when I come back. But that means that I have to wait. I have to wait till I get back to watch the next episode. It's going to drive me crazy. So, but at least I'll get to see some of your comments. So please no spoilers, hints, or clues. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I'm ready to see what's going to happen next. And I will see you then to review and react to more Pluto. Bye.